Just talking musicals, musicals with you.
Hello, I'm Lesley Anne Knight, and welcome to the Just Talking Musicals meetup, where I get to have a quick catch up with some of today's outstanding theatre professionals from the West End and Broadway. On the other side of the Zoom window today is an actress who at 19 was the youngest actress ever to play the role of Eva Peron in Evita, and went from there to her West End debut in the musical Chess. There followed a 2-year run in Cats playing Grisabella at the New London Theatre, and then she was off to appear as Fantine in Les Miserables, first in Manchester and then on tour. To be honest, the list just goes impressively on, with landmark productions including High Society at the Shaftesbury Theatre, Anything Goes playing Reno Sweeney on tour, Acorn Antiques on tour playing Mrs. Overall, 42nd Street at the Curve and the Châtelet in Paris, The Witches of Eastwick on tour playing Alex Spofford, and Guys and Dolls at the Marigny in Paris in 2019, playing my favourite musical theatre character of all time, Miss Adelaide. But there are two standout moments I had to include in today's introduction. The first when she hit the headlines covering for Hollywood star Glenn Close in Sunset Boulevard at London's Coliseum, and the second playing yet another powerhouse role, Mama Rose in Gypsy at the Manchester Royal Exchange at the end of 2019. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Ria Jones to today's meetup on Just Talking Musicals. Hello, Ria.
Oh, I got emotional then. What are you doing to me? Gosh. I think I was fine until you got to the Sunset Boulevard section, because that will always stand out to me too in my career as such an amazing memory. And just sometimes I don't think about it every day, but when people say it like that, it brings back such an emotional reaction from me, and I don't expect it. So, but yeah.
Oh, I'm not surprised it gives that reaction though, but I mean, just reading about your career, it's wonderful. And I know we're not meant to be talking about this right at the beginning of our 7 questions, but when I suppose I can't resist asking you this, because when you start out in the theatre and you say, no, I want to be a performer, everybody always says, oh, well, there's going to be periods where you're not going to be working, and it's a tough life. But reading about your career, like I've been doing,
You've done your research.
It's wonderful, but you're a prime example of somebody you've absolutely made it work, and it's an ongoing working.
Yeah, well, exactly. The funny thing is, Lesley, I never ever really, this sounds crazy, but set out for it to be a career. It was something I was born into with both my parents in show business in some form, and so it was just there as like an enjoyment and a hobby, and it was always in my life. Never once did I think of it as a career. Certainly back in Wales when there wasn't any musical theatre courses and that at the time. So I just thought, oh well, I'll give it a go and see what happens. And that was 37 years ago, and I've not even had a Saturday job. I consider myself extremely lucky. But I think I've tried to have so many strings to my bow, so that when there aren't the musicals around that I'm right for or cast in, I can go and do cabaret, I can do concerts, so I've tried to always work.
Yeah, you think on your feet and you make it happen.
Yeah. And I love spontaneity.
Yeah.
I as a child, I just always wanted, I never like routine. I love the fact that I don't know what I'm doing this time next year. Some friends of mine think, how can you live like that? But that's my makeup, and that's what makes me me.
Yeah. And again, I've got to just build on that introduction from what I learned. You were only 19 and you got that incredible role in Evita.
I know, it's crazy. I was going back through, as a lot of people are doing at the moment, going through old photographs and files and things. And I was 18 when I actually was cast by Hal Prince.
Prince?
Yeah, he literally, at the Prince Edward Theatre, came up to the front of the stage and offered it to me there and then, and he said, I just asked Bob Swash why we hadn't seen you before in any auditions. And he told me your age, so you were probably still in school, He said, how would you like to play Eva Peron? I alternated with the wonderful Catherine Evans, and it was I would say my biggest break, that started me on that sort of Yeah, it was an incredible experience working with him and with Mitchell as assistant, and what a way to start, you know. And I bumped into him a few years ago in New York backstage, and I didn't think he'd recognise me, and I went up to him and said hi straight away. He remembered me, and we recalled some lovely memories, and had a photograph taken with him, and I treasure that photo now because sadly, as you know, he's not with us anymore. So I consider myself very honoured to have worked with such a mighty force of the theatre.
Well, he's Broadway royalty.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, really is. And he's genius. His productions, you know, his production of Evita, I think to this day is still the best.
I've gone completely off course here, but because I've got to say to you, because about Hal Prince, I can't resist to talk to you about him, because it was Hal Prince and Stephen Sondheim had this conversation when they were having trouble with West Side Story right at the beginning, and there was a telephone conversation between the two of them saying, because Hal Prince was working on something and they were having a conversation, and he said, and this is Hal Prince's side of the story. He finally got to the end of the conversation and said to Stephen Sondheim, "Well, how's yours going?" He said, "Well, we've lost our producer. You know, we're in dire straits at the moment." And that's how those two started their big collaboration.
And what a collaboration. Oh, yeah. Two powerhouses, you know?
Yeah, and the fact that Hal Prince shared an office with George Abbott on Broadway, and George Abbott was producer, director, play. They're all beautifully connected, aren't they?
It's lovely, isn't it? What a great story. Just that alone would make such a wonderful story of how those great minds all connected.
Yeah.
And, you know, and created the best work, I think, you know. Some of the best work.
Yes, I always find that the stories from the past feel like they were only yesterday, and they're so inspiring for what people tend to think that musical theatre is very today, and yet I always think, well, you only have to look to see what they were doing then, and you learn so much from how things really
completely. I mean, I must admit, I'm not very knowledgeable at all about the new musicals, modern musicals. I'm ashamed to say, because I love, you know, the old classics, Rodgers and Hammerstein, and the Jerry Hermans, and, you know, that's my sort of passion. I love those big musicals, and I know I should start listening to more, and and broaden my horizon, because I keep saying to young performers, you know, have you watched the classics? Some of them have never watched these classics, and I think you must go back and watch them all. But then I'm as guilty as them for not watching, you know, the ones currently on today, you know, so yeah.
But I think you and I grew up in a time when it was Rodgers and Hammerstein and the classic, gorgeous musicals, and they were made into films, and I think that is why we
because years ago musical film had to be a success on Broadway first. It was a musical first, and then it was a film. Nowadays it's completely reversed. A film first and then the musical, and I don't know whether that's hampered creativity in new musicals. I don't know, just relying on I'd film first. I don't know. It's funny how it has completely reversed, though.
I suppose it's just broadened out. You get the both, really, don't you?
Yeah. But then you see people go to the theatre expecting, you know, the film, and you can never create in a theatre, really, you know, some of the amazing effects that you can on film. It's a very different genre, but I guess if the music's fantastic and the story in the book you know, is really strong, then they can work either way. If you've got a good director and a good designer, lighting, you know, then you can create the most incredible experience at the theatre that you can't get on film, you know, because I always think in theatre, you as an audience member decide who and what you follow, whereas film, it's decided for you.
And you can't beat the excitement of live theatre.
Oh, you know, with what's going on at the moment, you know, I think we've taken for granted, me included, how special live performances are. The connection that you get in a theatre, that atmosphere, that you know, the most amazing few hours where everyone is in that one space together and experiencing for one time only that, you know, that performance that will never be repeated like that again. And I think that's the beauty of theatre.
And it's why people go back, to repeat that wonderful feeling. And
it's the feeling they get. Exactly.
Yeah. And I suppose I must be good and keep to my so-called 7 questions.
Yes, and I must be good and shut up.
Oh no. But one of the questions, first question that I've been asking everybody on this meetup is, what were you in the middle of working on when the COVID lockdown took place? But in a way, the timing for you was quite good in a way.
It was good in a way. Yeah. So I was working on my garden, I guess. But I'd just finished Gypsy. Yeah. And it was quite a role, and I was tired after it. And so I decided I wanted to take a few months off anyway, to just catch my breath and think, right, what do I want to do next? Where do I want to be? Do I want to stay in London for a while? Do I want to tour again? You know, so I was taken, and then this happened. So it decided for me to be at home for a while. And it's been good for that, you know, but I just feel so strongly for everyone that was either just starting contracts or about to start rehearsals or coming to the last few months of a contract, which, you know, is special times, especially if you've been in a long running show. You don't get that closure. So it's I was lucky in that respect, and I didn't have anything coming up that I was desperate to do.
Yeah. So presumably you can sort of plan your projects from henceforth, can't you?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, there's been a lot of talk lately. Where are we? We're at sort of middle of July here, towards the end of July 2020. There's been so much in the news about, and quite rightly so, about theatre funding being at the bottom of the list to help people who work in the arts. Just recently, there's been a thing about some theatres saying that they expect that the people that work for them to pay back some of their furlough money when they go back to work.
I read that and I didn't know, was that true? Is that actually true?
I don't know, but it was in The Stage. I know that they were covering it in The Stage. And
I read that. I was appalled.
Yeah, and there's just so much around about there being some funding. Good that we've had some funding notice, and I know in America they've got absolutely nothing. But what do you think, what's your opinion of what should be done for the arts to help people get back in the theatres? I know I saw also on social media earlier this morning, I saw Beverly Knight was going in to do an experiment at the London Palladium, wasn't she?
It was yesterday, last night, yeah. She and I read online, you know, a lot of people said it was great. You know, Andrew Lloyd Webber has been incredible. You know, I think he's really championed the cause, and he's put himself out there and stood up for everyone really in theatre. And that's what we need. That's what the government don't have. They don't have anyone with what I call theatre in their blood. You know, they're just academics really that are dealing with artistic license. I just think what any government should have, any party, any government should have a body of people that have been there, have done it, and have theatre in their blood and understand the people within it, understand how it runs. And there's not. I've looked, there's nobody that sort of has that, you know, experience of performing and understand what it's like to perform and what audiences feel and everything that surrounds it, on stage, backstage, ups, downs, you know. And we're always called upon for other charity events, and this is the time when we actually need help too. And I think it's been too slow and too little and too late. And so what everyone's trying to do now is just survive this year, and hopefully theatres can open for Christmas for the Panther season. Otherwise, I think a lot of theatres will really suffer. The knock-on effect's going to be huge. But I just think the government have just not. I think we've all just felt second-class citizens as far as work. It's not taken seriously. We pay taxes. It's serious when it comes to paying our taxes. If they're not paid on time, we're fined. All that's serious. But when it comes to, you know, supporting us in, you know, this crazy time, I just think it's been very slow. You know, the petitions that had to be signed just to get some recognition, just to be talked about for weeks and weeks. You know, I was watching all the TV debates and stuff. Nobody discussed theatre. It was always like just never mentioned.
Yeah.
And you know, there's room for everyone. Sports, absolutely, we all need that. You know, the restaurant industry and it's all, but we all, there's room for everybody. But I just think it was too late, too little, too late for me.
And the other thing is, and this is, I know something I believe that you feel strongly about, it's not just about London, it's about the whole of the country. It's about regional theatre, and the regional theatres have been crippled by this.
Absolutely. More so in a way, more so because I've spent half, if not more, of my career touring around these beautiful theatres with the most passionate people working there, keeping them alive. And it's hard, you know, when you think of what we have these days, television, social media, there's so much that theatre competes with. It's hard to keep a theatre going in good times. So these times, even more so. But I think people are crying out for that contact now, and that, you know, I just feel, you know, some people say get a real job. I've heard so many things like that online, you know, I get a real job, and you think, okay, let's take away social media, TV, radio for the day, or anything to do with arts and music and culture. Let's take it away from for a day, and then see how everyone gets on for a few days.
Being creative, if we weren't allowed to be creative as beings, we wouldn't have science, we wouldn't have anything. Everything goes together, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course it does. Of course it does. We all need, you know, creativity in every aspect of life.
Yeah. And some of those theatres you were just talking about, they are some of them are the beautiful playhouses from the Victorian era, aren't they?
They're stunning. They're works of art. They're historic buildings that are just filled with so many memories and wonderful, past performances. And you know, there's nothing quite like when you're touring, going into a theatre for that first day and walking out onto stage and seeing a new auditorium and working out the where to play and the sight lines and everything. It's just a lovely feeling, and I love regional theatre. I absolutely do. And you know, the touring companies are just like families, really, because we're all away from home experiencing the same things. In London it's different because we all go home every night to our homes, so it's not that same social bubble as you get on tour. So
true.
But it's sad to see some of these theatres suffering, closing, and really struggling, laying off staff that have been there years and sweated many hours. And it's just sad, isn't it? It's just sad. I hope it will recover.
Sorry,
I hope it will. No, I just hope it recovers. It will recover. We will.
Do you think those theatres, somebody will rescue those theatres at some point in the next couple of years? I just can't believe these beautiful theatres are going to sit empty or become cinemas.
Oh no, they have to. They have to. It's just, I don't know. I really hope in the new year, you know, we'll be able to open a lot more theatres. I know open air spaces are now, and luckily it's the time of year where we can perform in the open air. But come the winter and everything, and if there is a second wave or a spike, you know, who knows? So
hallelujah for a vaccine. That's what I think.
Yes, I know. I don't think one's ever been needed so badly.
No.
Would you have one? Would you have a vaccine?
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, I must admit, I am a bit of a scaredy cat, not at needles, but a bit of maybe a control freak, I would say. Bit scared of putting something into me that maybe hasn't, I don't know, had long to see what the further down the road the effects. I don't know. That's just me being a scaredy cat, but yeah, I probably would.
No, I know I would. And
Yeah.
but then I suppose we're all coming experiencing this in different ways, aren't we? So it's
Yeah, I mean, I have days of, I can be a bit low and a bit fed up. Not fed up's the wrong word, because I don't really like to waste a day, to be honest. But I think we're all a bit on a emotional roller coaster at the moment, aren't we?
Yeah,
I mean, I feel it's a bit like,
times.
yeah, I mean, I love my own company. I love my home. I love being at home pottering, but I do feel I've become a bit of a recluse at the moment because, yeah, I'm just not going out as much as, I'd be out every day, whether it's just to the shops. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I think in the winter, maybe when you can't sit out the garden and stuff, I probably will go out more.
Well, here's something jollier. What is your favourite show of all time, Ria Jones?
Do you mean to be in or to experience?
Both, please.
Well, Sunset Boulevard to be in. It just, for me as an actor and singer, it just ticked every box and came at the right time in my life. To experience, oh gosh, I've had some of the most amazing experiences. To put one above all, I don't know. I do remember seeing The Colour Purple on Broadway and just being blown away, because I'd never really experienced a Broadway audience, and they are special. I'd love to be able to perform on Broadway just for that experience of an audience like that, because it was electrifying, the atmosphere in that theatre through the whole show, and it was an incredible show. That will stand out as a big memory of mine. Yeah,
there are some shows that you can see and they make you can't move from your seat at the end. I've been like
that was one of them. That was one of them. Yeah. It was just, and I didn't even think about, I just stood at the end, and I've never had that sort of, didn't even realize I just automatic. It was just, what other way can I show how much I just felt over the past few hours? It was just wonderful, magical. Yeah.
And that's why when people say, oh, why don't you get a proper job? That's precisely why. Let's face it.
Great answer.
Yeah.
There you go. You could bottle that and just say,
that's why.
Experience that.
On your favourite show, though, you just mentioned Sunset Boulevard. Now, there is an extraordinary story attached to you in Sunset Boulevard, isn't there? The fact that you were the first person to be part of the showcase, the workshop for it, weren't you?
I was, yeah. And funnily enough, going through my stuff again, I found the letter that Andrew Lloyd Webber had written to me, thanking me for bringing Norma Desmond to life.
Yeah.
And I think it was in 1990, 91. I was 24. So, and at the time, I knew I was way too young to ever play her, but to sing those songs the first time ever, and to work with him and the collaborators, was just what an honour. And little did I know, fast forward 26 years, I'd be playing her at the Coliseum. It was a magical time. And I'd loved the film. Excuse me, I've always loved the film. My mum's a big film buff, so I watched it when I was quite young and loved it and loved that era. And I think the score is one of my favourite scores, because it really lends itself. It's so cinematic. It lends itself to the style and story and period. So such a wonderful circle, complete circle. And yeah.
But there's one thing being an understudy And another thing, being an understudy for a show that's on at, isn't the Coliseum, along with the Palladium and the Coliseum, I think, okay, Theatre Royal's big too, but it's probably one of the biggest theatres.
Yeah, it's one of yeah, funny enough, I went to watch a musical there a year ago, and I sat in the audience, and I walked in, and it just takes your breath away, the size of it. And I sat there, and I turned to Stephen Mear, funnily enough, and I turned to Stephen and I said, I can't believe I did that. But when you're on stage, it's very different, obviously, looking out to being that side in it, you know. But it's funny because when I took the job on, friends of mine thought, why are you, that's going backwards, you know, understudying, or standby as it was called, because I wasn't actually in the show to understudy. I was standing by in the wings every night. But I had breast cancer in 2013, and that was a year out of my career. And so it was the first sort of big job that came along after all that. And I just thought it was a great way of getting back into the business, but without big pressure of it. Just, you know, do you know what I mean? It was just like watching from the sidelines, taking it all in, learning from, you know, Glenn and Lonnie Price, a wonderful director, just learning and watching, but in that sort of, on the sidelines, just observing. And it was a great way of me performing again. And of course, when I went on, it was just an amazing 4 shows, and it was a real celebration for myself for going through all that and coming out the other side, and then having that almost as a gift. So it was a special for many reasons, but I just think it just came at the right time. And as I said, the pressure wasn't on me to do 8 a week, or to do, you know, the pressure was on when I went on, but it was a different pressure. It's different. And so yeah, it was special in many ways.
What's it like getting that phone call?
Well, it was about 9:30 in the morning at first, just to warn me that I might be going on, just to give me a little bit of a notice. I might be, but they'll call me to let me know for sure sometime in the day. And I'd gone to meet friends for lunch next door to the theatre, and 3:30 I got the call to say I was on. I'd never rehearsed with the orchestra. I'd never had a dress run of all the costumes. I'd never worked with any of the cast. I had 2 3-hour staging calls, one act one week, one act the other week, and that was it.
Wow.
And but you know, I think you can rehearse, but you know, it's still going to feel the same. You're still just thrown on. That's the job. I knew that might happen.
Was the work in your head still?
No. The music's always been in my head, because I've always sung the songs in concert. But the lovely thing was, because I was in the wings every night, I felt part of the company. I didn't want to sit in my room and just listen. I just wanted to be in the thick of it all. I wanted to be part of that, of the excitement every night. So I was in the wings, so I knew all the company. So when I was on, I felt I knew everyone, because I'd experienced it on stage with them every night, be it in the wings, I was there. And they were just incredible and so supportive, and the orchestra, everyone. But yeah, I just, it was just wonderful, and it was scary. I knew I was going to get, well, I knew there were going to be boos and things, but you know, people shouting, "We want our money back," and all that. But in a way, I turned my tannoy down, because I didn't want to hear any of that. And I just thought, well, they're not booing me, because they don't even know me from a bar of soap. So why would they're booing the situation? And I got it. But it made me more fired up to get out there and, you know, show them and do my job and best I could.
Isn't it awful though? When it must be, people go to the theatre and you assume that they are theatre lovers and they understand how the theatre works.
Theatre etiquette.
There seems to be an element of people that do not understand how it works, the effort that goes behind the scenes, and sometimes people really can't get on the stage, and that the person that's coming in and my goodness, they're going to have worked hard.
And the thing is, do you think Glenn wanted to be off? No, not at all. The pressure on her was immense, and she was really ill. And, but it was just, somebody had to do it, and that was me, and the show must go on, as we all know. And, it was Sunset Boulevard with Glenn Close. It wasn't Glenn Close in concert. So people were like, well, bless her, she wasn't well enough. And I really felt for her for all that pressure. And it's not always the nicest way to go on, knowing that someone else is poorly. But someone had to, and that was me. And I had to do the best job, I could for her, as much as me for her as well, So, yeah.
What was it like at the end, on the first night?
I'll get emotional. I can't talk about it. Whew.
I read that it was a 6-minute standing ovation, wasn't it?
It was incredible. When I finished With One Look, which was the first song that Norma sings, within minutes of her being on stage, they just went crazy after it, and it really took my breath away. And I thought, I've got to focus here. I've got a lot to do. This is the first song, but how lovely that they've almost, given me permission, said, oh, okay, yeah, all right. And it was special. And friends of mine that were there said it was just amazing how the whole audience just turned by the end. They were, it was like a dream. It was thrilling, emotional. Just wished, you could bottle it. But there are clips on YouTube and things. So when someone posts it, sometimes I'll watch it. But it was incredible. Yeah.
That's one of life's satisfying. It's satisfying, isn't it? And for you, I just imagine when I read about the fact that you'd done it earlier and you workshopped it, it must have been a real full circle moment for you and Andrew Lloyd Webber, the fact that came true. And there's no way you could ever have predicted it in that way.
No. And he sent me such a lovely message. He was in New York at the time, and he was gutted he couldn't be there, but he sent me the most wonderful message. And it was really, really lovely. Yeah.
But then you went on to the Boulevard on tour, didn't you?
Yes. Well, Michael Harrison, producer, was in watching the show on the Saturday evening, and phoned me the next morning and said, you've got to do it. You have to do this again in your own right, and I'm going to produce it. I've spoken to Andrew. He's given me the green light, so let's do it. And the rest is, and then I toured with it. And I took it to Swansea, my hometown, which is, for me, was such a thrill, because of all the musicals I'd done, we'd never gone to Swansea at the Grand. We've always played Cardiff, and the producer said, we have to go to Swansea. Just for that one line, I've come home at last, in the middle, and it was incredible. Every night I sang it, they stopped the song in mid-song, The cast were like sobbing behind me. They'd never experienced such an emotional moment on stage. It was really thrilling, yeah. So that was special, and to have my parents there, and my family.
And hadn't you done panto there when you were little?
Yeah, I was 9 when I got my child equity card. And the pantos then in the Grand in Swansea used to run for 12 weeks, 3 months. I remember celebrating my 10th birthday, which is March the 8th, on stage, still doing panto. And back then I was given my child equity card that was automatically renewed then to a provisional equity card, and then which enabled me to do Joseph for Bill Kenwright when I was 16.
Wow.
did the narrator, and then got my full equity card, because those are the days when you had to have an equity card to perform.
Yeah, I remember those days.
100975. Still remember my membership number. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I got my original one. Yeah.
But it makes you appreciate what you the whole community of being in the theatre even more. I think in a way, although it's good, I still think it's a bit of a shame. There's that graft, that almost impossible way that people went, oh, I've got to do 6 months of this, and I've got to do that. I've got to learn.
I did the clubs. I did the clubs to get more contracts and everything. And actually, that's what I meant to say when you were talking about Sunset. Sorry to go back there, but I'll never forget the support of the theatre family. People from the West End, all over the country, performers, actors, who were like so thrilled for me and supported me, and were like, yes, one of us, one of the worker. I've worked for 30 odd years, and getting their moment to shine or whatever, and the thrill of everyone supporting me in the theatre community was something that was just very special for me.
Yeah, I bet. Just terrific. Now I've got another question up my sleeve. Who is your favourite performer ever, yesterday and today?
Oh, Julie Andrews. I wished I could have seen her live on stage. My mum saw her, because my mum studied at the Royal College of Music in London when she was younger, and she saw her at the Drury Lane, I think, in My Fair Lady. And I would have loved to have seen her live on stage, but I love her in all the musical films. I just adore her. I think she's just wonderful. She's somebody I really, really look up to. I love comedy. I love Carol Burnett. I saw her live in her An Evening With in New York a few years ago, which the night I bumped into Hal Prince. I was lucky enough to have drinks backstage afterwards and met her. And her Miss Hannigan was something else in the movie. Annie, I just think it was just masterclass in musical theatre comedy. I love Judy Garland, A Star Is Born, that film. Oh, incredible. So, yeah, they're... and Ethel Merman, I mean, just what a gal, what a broad.
She's an interesting character, isn't she? Because when I used to think of Ethel Merman, I used to think of the Ethel Merman who I'd see in interviews and stuff from the 60s, and she would have been an older lady then, and she was always quite outspoken and kind of, I always used to be a bit afraid, because she wasn't she was independent, she was strong, she was she was good, but she didn't fit anybody's mold. No. And as I've got older, I thought, good for you. When she was a young,
what made her unique.
Yeah, but when I've also in the last few years watched her in I think it's the 1936 Anything Goes film that she did with Bing Crosby, which is interesting because they mucked about with Anything Goes. You probably know this, when it was being, early days, and when sometimes they'd make a film and you wouldn't, that particular song, I don't even think film even had the song Anything Goes in it. And it was, but the way the wonderful, beautiful, lovely performer with a great voice that you see in that 1936 film, I fell in love with her, watching her in that.
Oh, I want to watch that. Oh, I don't think I've ever seen that.
Oh, I'll find the details and send them to you. It's beautiful.
Will you?
She's just gorgeous. And yeah, it's just...
I think I've seen clips. In fact, I know I've seen clips of it. I've never seen the whole film. Oh, I'd love to see that.
And she was right to be the way she was, wasn't she?
Yes, absolutely. And she gave birth, as they say, to the belt voice, My God, did she have a belt? The bell in every tone.
See, Cole Porter described the sound of her voice as the sound of a brass band passing by.
Fabulous. I watched a clip of her the other day singing. She must have been, I can't remember, late 60s maybe, I don't know. And she started off with an umbrella outside in the rain, singing, walking, and you just think, God, you know, good for her. Many performers say, I'm not doing that. I'm not singing in the rain, you know, with an umbrella, but she did it. Oh, trooper that she is, you know.
Yeah.
I just think she's just fabulous. Such a powerhouse, really brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, she was a legend, and she wasn't
Yeah.
afraid of anyone. But
Oh, no. I love when Elaine Stritch did a one-woman show and would talk about stories of Ethel Merman, just brilliant stories. You know, she'd be singing, go up to the audience, punch someone in the face, and come back. That was heckling her while she was still singing. You know, it's just brilliant. Yeah.
But she came from that era where you had to stand up for yourself on stage. You had to be able to cope with anything that might come your way. I suppose you know, it was a way of life then, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to have dinner. You know, they say, oh, who would your dinner companions be? You know, and she'd definitely be one of them for me. I'd love to hear her stories. Yeah.
She was an independent woman during a time where it was very hard to be an independent, outspoken woman, and I think that makes her even more fascinating.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Now, have you covered off this part of the question and saying, does Julie Andrews is present, she is today, I know, but what about, you can have somebody else? Is there anyone else that you want to include in your list?
I've said Judy Garland, I said Ethel Merman.
But those are from yesteryear. What about out there?
Out there now?
Yeah.
Like I said, Carol Burnett, but she doesn't really do musicals as such.
No, Carol Burnett counts, yeah.
Yeah. I'd love, you know, I'd love to see her in a I mean, I think she'd be a fabulous Maine.
Yes.
I do. I think Carol Burnett would be a lovely Maine. Aunt Maine.
Well, that's all right.
Oh, I do. I tell you, I've always admired Julie Mackenzie. Oh.
Did you see her Miss Adelaide in Guys and Dolls at the National?
No, I didn't. Sadly, I didn't see it, you know, from an audience. I've seen many clips. But I fell in love with her. I had such a crush on her when I saw her in Follies at the Shaftesbury Theatre. Yes. I think I went back about 5 times. That's my favourite production. You know, you were talking about a performance that stands out. I completely forgot. Follies at the Shaftesbury Theatre with that cast, Dolores Gray, Linda Barron, Julie Mackenzie, and Diana Rigg.
It was just
and I mean, I think Maria Charles, and it was just glorious. I was 21 at the time, and I was across the road in Cats at the New London, and I used to go and watch the matinees, and it used to fill. By the end of it, I just couldn't wait to get on stage, because it was like watching a masterclass after masterclass after I was just in love with them all, in love with the show. And Julie Mackenzie's in Buddy's Eyes, I just think she's one of our best musical theatre ever. I really do, because she can do it all.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, she's the reason I fell in. Miss Adelaide is my favourite character in musical theatre, because I saw her so many times doing it.
Oh, it's a gift. Such a great show, and the book is fantastic. It's and it's funny because I love comedy. And that's why I love Mrs. Overall, and working with Victoria Wood was a dream. I love comedy, and a lot of my roles, which have been, don't get me wrong, wonderful, you know, but they've been, you know, the dramatic sort of, you know, Grisabellas and Perron, and they've all got, but to play comedy, I love to make people laugh more than anything. My friends in normal life, I love to make people laugh. I love to laugh. There's nothing better than having an uncontrollable fit of giggles. So much so that you're exhausted from it.
How did you feel when you got the opportunity to be Mrs. Overall? Because of Julie Walters.
Well, I never went up for the role. I didn't audition for Mrs. Overall. I auditioned for another part, Bonnie, and the glamorous sister. And when I got recalled for Mrs. Overall, I was like, I thought I looked quite glamorous in the audience. But I was thrilled because I just thought, oh my God, really? So I just studied and studied and studied the DVD. I mean, I'd watched them all growing up, or anything Victoria Wood, Julie Walters did, I watched, you know. TV gold, just incredible. And no one will ever touch Julie Walters' Mrs. Overall. And when I got the part, I was so excited and then terrified, because I thought, I'm stepping into some of the biggest pair of shoes, you know. But I thought, again, somebody's got to do it, and I will respect the character that Julie created and add my spin in it. But you have to, it's like doing the equivalent of playing Hilda Ogden and not playing it as Jean Alexander created her. You have to, not an impression, but you have to have, you know, you have to follow that character as best you can, but put your own stamp on it. And well, yeah, I was terrified, but Vic was just wonderful to work with. Terrifying, but wonderful to work with, you know. I absolutely adored her, and she was very loyal to me, and we became good friends. And but I love, you know, her. She said to me, Ria, one thing to remember in comedy is let the audience decide if you're funny. If you tell them you're funny, it's not so, but just, you know, play the truth and let them decide it's funny. And it's so true.
Yeah.
If you try too hard at comedy, it falls flat. But if you just stay true to the character she created and the words she wrote, then it's funny, because she just chooses the right word. For biscuit, it's Garibaldi. You know, that's funny. She just has the right, she just knew how to choose the right word at the right time. And I learned so much from her. And that's one role I would love to do again. Yeah. Absolutely play her again. And I've met Julie Walters since, because I was there, I was honoured to sing at Vic's memorial service, and Julie Walters was there, and she did a sketch which was just brilliant, and we met each other, and she was just so gracious and lovely and gorgeous. And I have a book, her autobiography, that a friend got for me, and she wrote in it, "To the other Mrs. O, love Julie."
Oh, lovely. So that's another moment, isn't it? You go, thank you, I've got that one now. It's lovely. Yeah. Victoria Wood, though, what a great loss. I mean, she was just hitting her mark. I think we hadn't seen the best. I mean, what she was writing, the serious stuff that she was writing was just outstanding, wasn't it?
And you know what? I always said to her, and I know she did Acorn Antiques, but she could have written a musical, you know, like a proper, like you say, serious, whatever, you know, heartfelt musical, and that, because, well, that day we sang was fabulous.
Love, yeah.
Beautiful. You know, but I just think she could have written musical after musical after musical, you know. Such a talent, such a loss.
Great comedian, great actress, great writer.
Yeah. Just great friend, great mum. It's just wonderful.
Yeah. Well, But yeah, I
would love to do Acorn Antiques again. I said that to Stephen and Sammy Murray, who was co-directed it with Vic and that. And I think we'd all love to do it again. Yeah. I think we need a laugh now, don't we?
Gosh, yes. It's the other thing about these questions, I love where they lead.
I know, they've gone right. Yeah. Welcome to my brain.
Yeah.
There's a butterfly in there.
You take 7 fairly innocuous questions and then go, right, oh, wow. You know, it's wonderful. Now, we are on the next one then. Broadway or West End? You
mean to perform in, or to...
That's what I like, it's so open-ended. It's what you think, what you make of it, that statement. I mean,
well, you know, from an early age, and especially if you love musical theatre, Broadway would be a dream. As I think American performers think the same of, you know, coming over and performing in the West End. They're both magical in very different ways. I mean, I've only watched shows on Broadway, and the experience was something else. But I'd have to choose the West End because it's given me so much. I had 10 years of, you know, in my 20s of appearing in the West End, and they were the happiest times back then. I think in the late 80s, 90s, special times, lots of wonderful new shows emerging, you know, Les Mis, Phantom, all those greats. And the community there was no social media in that. We were just social.
Yes.
We had, you know, more little clubs, and yeah, it was a really, I'm so thrilled that was my sort of time in the West End. Yeah.
I don't know whether it's a thing about getting older and the era that one goes through is one's favourite place. Like when I look back on my youth, I think of the 70s as being the best time for pop music. But when I think about going to the theatre, and when I was younger, I used to and I'm looking at the 80s, 90s, 80s. But that after show thing where it was so exciting. The West End would be buzzing and alive, and everybody would be pouring out of the theatres, and they'd go and have something for dinner. It was the thing. You had to have your dinner after the show. It wasn't
after.
I've got to go and get my train, I've got to run now.
No,
it was no. Who cares what time you get home, or if you miss your last train? I'm going for dinner, and if I'm lucky, I'm going to go to Joe Allen's. You know, it was that kind of, and I'm going to live the dream and think about the theatre for the rest of the evening.
Yeah, I agree, because you're on a high. When you come up from a show, that's when you want to then celebrate what you've just experienced. So your adrenaline's pumping, you're on a high. And to go for dinner and then we used to go, when I was in chess, we used to then go to the piano bar above Madame Jojo's, you know, and sing until early hours, you know, and it was just, those were the days.
That's the life that you associate with it, isn't it? It's the life that the socializing. It's not socializing, it's unwinding and being together, isn't it? And just having a laugh.
That's exactly it. That's because you know, that was our time of day, really, wasn't it? Performing and then carrying on that for a few hours to unwind afterwards.
Yeah.
And then fly in the morning.
Yeah. The West End's your answer, and I don't blame you. Okay.
And then we used to be able to drive in then and park outside the theatre. I always remember in Cats, we could park outside on a single yellow from 6:30. So all the cast, you know, would be in each of our cars, and we'd get there, we'd get a space, and we'd be sitting in our cars watching our watches till about 2 minutes before 6:30, a traffic warden would come round, and we'd have to go round the block, and then it'd be a race to get back to you if you could get that space that you just sat in for the last 10 minutes. And the crazy days. And then you could leave your car, and you know, now you can't do any of that.
No.
You know, it's changed.
Different times, but there we are.
Different times. Yeah.
Really
I was looking at old photographs from Cats as well, you know, and the New London, and just, I was 21, and it was my second West End show, and I was just living the dream. And I wished I'd written a diary. I wished I'd kept more diaries of how I was feeling at the time, and how I was, you know, the experiences that I had then, because they're all just in my memory, and I forget a lot. I wished I'd written more down. People say, do you have any advice for younger people? I mean, they do have social media now where you can look back and have some sort of diary, but there's nothing quite like your own thoughts written on paper. Say, write your thoughts down, write your diary. You know, good times and bad times, just write them down.
Yeah, good song.
A song there somewhere, isn't there? One of my favourite songs. I saw Eartha Kitt do it as well as Dolores Gray, and just incredible. I was just in my element watching these legends.
you can't believe you're in the presence of, can you? And I think it's, I know when I was on Broadway, I realised there was one trip that I was on, and I remember I was sitting, I think I was watching Chicago, and I'd managed to get a seat right at the front in the orchestra, and I realised I had to pull myself together because I was actually sitting there watching the show going, Lesley, stop it.
But then, but then saying that, how wonderful for the people on stage to see that. There's nothing quite like looking out and seeing somebody completely, absolutely transfixed. That's wonderful. And it gives you almost more permission to, whereas when you look out and see someone asleep or, looking at their watch or on their phone texting, there's nothing more off-putting and more,
But audiences seem to think, that's a good point, because audiences these days seem to think you can't see or hear them.
Oh, you can. Especially when their face is lit up from a screen.
Yeah.
Nothing more annoying. God, that really annoys me. Whether I'm on stage or off, behind somebody at the side. I have to say something. The Swansea girl in me comes out, I'm afraid.
I'm not surprised. It's you just, I mean, as an audience member, you want to sort of flick people around the back of the head and say, do you mind? I mean, it's just like, please stop.
It's so rude.
Yes.
Rude for everyone. It's like, can you not live with that for 2 hours?
Yeah.
If you're bored, go. Give your seat up to somebody.
Yes, give us a better view. Now, we've come to the last question on the meetup. And this is going to be an interesting one, because you've been talking about writing about memories, about theatre. And it's, if you were to write a book about your life up to now, what would the title be? And what would your favourite chapter be?
I think the title would have to be Have You Met Miss Jones?
Oh, yeah.
And I think the sunset experience of the Coliseum, from the whole experience of it all over the 2 months it was. Was it 2 months? Something like that. Yeah. Including rehearsals. Yeah. I think that would be the most exciting chapter to write. Yeah. Next one would be working with Vic and working on Mrs. Overall.
Ria, there's some amazing stories there. You're not tempted to write a little something?
But you know what? So many people have said that to me. From my stories I could tell you when I did the clubs in Wales were just, you wouldn't believe some of the things that happened to me. They're quite funny. And then, to go through that into, working on Evita, literally from that to that. And then into the West End and the tours and that. Yeah, maybe, I don't know whether that many people would actually be interested. I don't know. Maybe I'll do it for me. Like I just said, write it all down for me. I've worked with some amazing people. And maybe one day.
I honestly think that people would, from my perspective, I would love to read something like your experience of your career, because I teach singing. That's what I do, and I teach musical theatre at music college. And it's this whole thing that I think we were saying earlier about young people today. They don't know about these amazing stories, but they don't know about the classic, the golden era musicals. They don't know about them. There isn't so much of a story about how you actually get going with your career these days. There are some biographies, of course there are, but it's to read the story about somebody who's working in the business today and going, look, that wasn't easy. It's just a question of grafting, just getting on with it and going for it.
I think as well my stories may be different as well, because I didn't train. I've never had training. And so I, came into it in by default, really, I guess, and just got paid for something I love to do and thought, oh, can I get away with this for a bit? And it just escalated from there, being in the right place at the right time, and or the right I say this, you can have the biggest talent in the world, but you might spend your career and the right show with the right part that won't come at the right time. I was lucky in that the parts that were around suited my voice at the time and my age, and but I could have spent years and not one show would have come along that I would have been right for. And I find that sad, that somebody could be perfect for a role, but the chance hadn't come along because the show, they missed the boat. They're too young or they're too old when it did happen, So I think that's timing is a great, the timing of Sunset was perfect. The timing of Acorn Antiques was right. I was just at the right age for that. Whereas if 10 years before, I wouldn't have been. So I think it is a lot of that. And I think it's just the luck that the right show will be written or revived at the right time for you, where you can show, like my mate Steve Balsamo, Jesus Christ Superstar came at the right time for him. That role was perfect for his voice and for his look, everything was perfect. If that hadn't come along at that time, we might not, have experienced such an amazing performance. So I think that has a lot to do with people's success.
And there is an element of making your own luck as well, isn't there? Getting out there and doing stuff like you were saying to me earlier. When I'm not working in a show as such, I go out there and I sing, and do you do a one-woman show? Is it a one-woman
yes,
show?
I do. And tell you now, a few weeks ago, I bought a PA system. Now, I haven't had my own PA system since I was 14, 15 when I did the clubs.
Yeah.
And I just think, you know what? I'll always use it at parties anyway. I've had the best fun with it. I've got it's a little amp, and it's got a slot for a USB stick with all my tracks on, backing tracks. And I already had the microphone and stand, and I can I've done a few shows for friends, just on Zoom, people who wanted to, will you sing this, will you? So I've done a few for them. And I just sometimes put it on and work on new songs. And I actually, yesterday, sat and I'm starting to work on a new one-woman show.
There you go.
And that would be great to have, to try out things with and be completely self-contained. When I did the clubs, it wasn't backing tracks, it was live backing, an organist and a drummer, and you'd get a different one every club. And you'd have 10 minutes to just not even work with the piano, just 10 minutes to tell him how you wanted, the tempos, etc. And some of them were shocking, and some of them I used to have a diary, and after each one I put good back in, back, don't go back there, blah, 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 because bless them, I was giving them Sondheim and things like that. But when I got to I Will Survive, you could see them, they'd stop sweating then. Oh, I know this one. But so what do you mean you don't know if my friends could see me now? I think sometimes I go out there in between the bingo. If they could see me now, they'd be like, well, give on the old razzle dazzle. Oh, dear.
That's fantastic, because you were singing songs that you like.
Yeah, but it was so. I turn up in my school uniform to set up, and they'd be like, and then I'd come out in my sequins and all that, and they'd be like, was that the same girl? They'd be like, I'd be like, so what's your name? What's your name? Ria Jones, right? Ria Jones, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, please give us some order now. She's only 15. Ria Jones. And I'd be like, it's Ria. If they could see me, you couldn't write some of the stories, but it was, I wouldn't change that for the world, because it gave me, I learned how to handle an audience at a young age.
Yeah.
If you can handle some of those audiences in the social clubs in Wales, West End audience, easy.
Well,
unless they're on the...
Sorry, that's surely how at 19 you exuded the confidence to get that amazing role.
Yeah, although one day in Evita, I remember walking on for that huge intro for Don't Cry For Me Argentina, the most beautiful intro where she just glides on in that fabulous white dress, turns round, just about to start, and someone shouted out, Maradona! Oh. Yeah. Hysterical. I laugh at it now, but at the time, and of course then all the audience like, and it was like, oh, that moment's ruined. Yeah, Maradona. Yeah,
Well, there we are.
and God, and God. So yes.
Peculiar, isn't it? People, the not so queer as folk.
Now, queerest folk.
Right then, Ria Jones, this has been an
Right
absolute
then.
honour, a pleasure, just terrific, and I can't thank you enough for coming
Well,
on the podcast today.
The feeling's mutual, and it's so lovely to chat to somebody, you know, about what we're obviously both passionate about, and also I wish we could. Well, we will in person one day. Let's say that.
Absolutely determined to.
Let's have a lovely meet-up.
I'd love to. Yeah, that would be fantastic. Yes, please.
Because we have loads in common, I can tell.
Yes, I think we have. Yes, I've been thinking that while we've been talking, and oh, Ria, this is terrific. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, my absolute pleasure. You're a joy.
Ditto.
You really
Ria
are.
Jones, thank you so much. And we will meet again soon. Bye-bye.
We'll meet again.
Oh, that's
Bye.
key. Bye-bye, Ria. Thank you.
Just talking musicals with you.